Good afternoon. How are you all doing? Good. The gathering place, I think everyone knows about the project. It's been in the news quite a bit lately. But I wanted to kind of give you an overview that I'm going to talk a little bit about the project itself because a lot of people want to know more about it. But I do really, anytime you have a question or something, I'd be happy to answer any questions. But also in this presentation, I'm going to talk about what I think is really the most important thing beyond just the park itself, which is phenomenal, really about the programming of the park. The park itself is a great asset. It'll be unbelievable. It'll be iconic. It'll draw national acclaim, if not international acclaim. But what I'm really more excited about is the shifting of gears we're doing at the foundation to make sure that we have programming opportunities for our youngest, all the way up to our oldest, and for every demographic within the city of Tulsa. So we'll be talking a little bit about that and the 5 areas of programming that we're focusing on. The gathering place is, as you all know, is located on Riverside Drive between about 26th Street and about 33rd Place. Let's see. Here we go. Whoops. I have a little problem here. There we go. So the Blair property that's located right here, here's the pedestrian bridge, 31st Street. This is Riverside Drive right here. We own also the Sundance apartment complex right in this area between Crow Creek and 31st Street. And then also the Legacy apartment complex, which goes across Cincinnati, goes almost 2/3 of the way, all the way over to Brookside. So that's kind of the scope of the project. Our phase 1 part of the project is all of this area here on both sides of Riverside Drive to 31st Street, and then on the west side of Riverside Drive down to about 34th Street. The old boundary was about 33rd Place, and we're actually moving some of the sport courts down into this southern area, kind of extending down past 33rd Place. Big changes to Riverside Drive. I know most of you know that Riverside Drive is going to get a makeover. It's been a long time coming. We've had city ordinances in place which have prevented investment in Riverside Drive. The lane widths currently, on average, are about 10.5 feet wide. They kind of change width as you kind of move through the site. But they'll be 13 feet wide, which will allow buses to get through and emergency vehicles greater accessibility up and down Riverside in this corridor. So there'll be 13-foot lane widths, and then there's a 16-foot tree line center median. And we worked very closely with the City of Tulsa and the Public Works Department to make sure that the road kind of became part of the parkway, and part of the park, and make it more of a parkway. Because when you go to cities like Chicago and Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Boston, if there's ocean or if there's a river or a park system, usually the road kind of carries the theme across it. Riverside Drive has never really carried the theme of river parks and the river across it. And so this was a good opportunity to kind of bring the park across the roadway. This will be actually what your view will be you're actually in the southern land bridge. It's got this really neat conical shaped bridge structure. It's actually a precast concrete structure, and it's got these conical ends that come out and feather down towards the roadway. This really makes it a unique and different. One of the things we tried with all the different elements that we had for the gathering place was to make it unique and different, something that you hadn't seen before. And this is the restyled pedestrian bridge. We've actually taken the girders about 140 feet off of the pedestrian bridge, picked it up, widened it 21 feet, and then put it back in across Riverside Drive. So now, as tight as the pedestrian bridge is, we wanted to make it wider so bikes and pedestrians could get across. And then also part of the plan, which was included in the Improve Our Tulsa package, was double-deckering the pedestrian bridge. So across the river, bikes will be up on the top, and runners and pedestrians will be on the bottom. So again, trying to increase the capacity of the bridge over the river and make it where it will work for both pedestrians and bicyclists. And then, of course, the giant land bridges. These two land bridges that go over Riverside Drive are about 100 yards long, about the size of a football field. So they're really, really long. They have large bermed up shoulders on each side of them up on top so that when you're on the land bridge, you won't see or hear the road traffic down below. In fact, the use of berms with the project if you'll notice here on the shoulders of Riverside Drive, it's shielding all that road noise from being in the park itself. So it really creates, the park will be, while the road is there, you really won't hear or see much of it when you're actually in the park. And that's not something that's really ingenious. If you go to Central Park in New York, they have city streets that run under Central Park. You might not know that, but they have large landscaped berms and trees and plantings on the edges that shield the roadway from the park itself. This is what the land bridge looks like when you're in the park. This is the North Land Bridge. This is the Quick Trip Great Lawn. And the road is actually behind this berm. And then this is the shoulder that I was talking about that's on the edge, the north edge of the land bridge. And then there's another shoulder right here. So when you're walking here in the middle, all the noise deflection is deflected up across these berms. And then these are, of course, trees and plantings that are on the top of the bridge. But the road is actually traveling underneath this section here. And it's, when you say the word land bridge, you think to yourself, bridge, you got to go up and over. But really, there won't be any pathway in the park that's greater than 5%. So it's all ADA accessible. The very first building you'll come to when you come into the park is the lodge. It's the Williams Lodge. They were our lead donor. It looks like a one-story building when you drive in, but it's actually a two-story building. There's a walkout basement here on the bottom. It has a porte-cochere, so you can drop the kids off, drop the family off. This will kind of serve as the main park entrance. Since this illustration was designed, there's actually been an improvement. We've actually added a food court over in this area here. It's very similar to if you've been to the East Coast, the Shake Shack concept, where you walk up and place your order. You'll be able to get, typical park food, hamburgers, hot dogs, but a lot of healthy options, salads, wraps, and those sorts of things over here. You'll also be able to grab a beer or wine. And then we're also going to have a lot of grab-and-go items, too, for families like, I think about my life and my family, but, milks and waters and Gatorades, and then some grab-and-go goldfish, maybe some fruit. So, in case you're just kind of coming through and going to the playground area or somewhere else in the park, you can grab some snacks for the kids. But that's all located in this area. Inside the lodge, it's really, let's see, oops, it's missing a slide. But it's got a huge community room where up to 300 people can congregate for an event. It'll have furniture in there. It'll be open anytime the park is open. So, and it's really meant to be a place for people to kind of get out of the weather, whether it's the heat or the cold or the rain. It'll have kind of a living room feel to it. Has really tall floor-to-ceiling plate glass windows. It'll be LED lit. It'll have geothermal. So it'll be a state-of-the-art building and very economical. It'll have a very large fireplace. We have huge fires in it. So in the wintertime, it'll be kind of a place that you could come and congregate. It also has a boardroom and a meeting room on this one west end area over here. Again, it kind of reflects kind of like a home office. I kind of look at this building as like a giant house because it's got the living room for the community room. It has a parlor area where about 150 people can gather on the east end. So it can have different meetings, it can have different community events, it can have a health fair. It really is a multi-purpose building. In the back of the building are these really large terraces. Can fit about 300 to 350 people on these terraces. Some of it has a very large fixed edge to it that goes all the way around it with fixed seating. And then if you notice, all the seating in the middle is movable and changeable. So it can, if you had a large group of people, you can pull 2 or 3 tables together. It also has a built-in playground where kids that are really under the age of 5, maybe 6 years old, could play. It can accommodate about 30 or 40 kids. So a small little playground located on the south edge. Has these really, if you notice all these large trees, these are actually all probably the most healthy and well taken care of trees that were behind the old house. And all of these decks are actually suspended and built up about 12 to 16 inches off the ground. And that is, and all the pilings that are holding it all up will be actually hand dug and micro-piled to not disturb any of the root systems for the trees. We're going to a lot of painstaking effort to make sure these trees don't get disturbed during construction, and then of course after the park is built. We want this tree canopy to be maintained And if you notice too, we've augmented a lot of it. We want people to congregate, and Tulsa has its challenges with its really hot summers. And so we have some really neat shade canopies that are being built. These kind of show, at one period of time in our design, concrete shade canopies with plantings that would come through these holes and kind of fall down into the, but we've actually changed it to kind of more of a really neat kind of wooden levelure type a look to it. Like it looks like a giant plantation shutter that can be changed depending on sunlight. So really a neat place to gather in the park. The next area on the west side is Mist Mountain. Mist Mountain, we actually have the fountain designer who engineered and designed the Bellagio fountains in Las Vegas. When he was a young engineer out of school, he worked on that design team to design those fountains, and he broke off from that company and started his own company called Fluidity, and he has patented a water cannon, and he can shoot a cylinder of water about 75 to 100 feet in a perfect cylinder. And if you've been to, I mean, I've seen his fountains now all over, but if you've been back to the Bellagio, they have the Oriental Gardens inside, and those are his fountains that stream over that 25-foot walkway area. I've also been to Vail Village. He's got a huge fountain in the middle there too. But he's really a talented, I think, artist, really. But they've created this really large pond here that's all interconnected. These pathways are actually over the top of the pond. These are all interconnected. So you'll have lily pad gardens with different types of flowering, lily pads, koi, but really neat, and also the sound of the water jetting around. But as you walk up the Mist Mountain area, and it's kind of got these little switchbacks here on the left-hand side or the lower side, as you walk up, it's got about a 20-inch wide stone wall that follows you all the way up these switchbacks. And when you get to the top, there's a main water feature here in the middle. All these jets are shooting the water up and over you and next to you all the way up, and then they all deposit in to the top of the water feature at the top of Mist Mountain. And then the water cascades out of it and rolls across that 20-inch stone wall. We've actually carved out of the top of the stone a little trough. So the water will then flow back down. So as you're walking up, you can sit on the side there and you can put your hand in the water, but the water's flowing by you. And then it comes and cascades back down into this lower pond. So it's really kind of an amazing water feature. All the meanwhile, beautiful plantings and flowers, trees, flowering trees as well, but really a neat location here. Now, if you look over here, there's some tables and chairs. There'll actually be a lot more tables and chairs here. And you're looking out, if you can't tell, outside of the upper community room, you're kind of looking out westward to the Mist Mountain area. Down below, as I mentioned, there was a walkout basement area. And in that walkout basement, there'll be an ice cream shop and a coffee shop, and also a place that you can go borrow / rent. It'll be board games, park equipment. If you don't have a basketball and you need a basketball, you can bring your driver's license in there, drop it off, and maybe for a few dollars get to borrow the basketball. Croquet sets, I mean, anything you'd see in a park. And we got this idea from Battery City Park in New York City. They have a game kiosk. And, a lot of people don't have all that equipment. So we want to have that accessibility, but you'll be able to get that in this lower area. And then who doesn't like ice cream? I mean, every kid in America likes ice cream, and most adults. So again, and coffee, can't go wrong. Again, trying to build amenities that bring people together. And ice cream and coffee can do that. So really a neat active area. And this porch area down here, and then there's an undercover porch area with a giant outdoor fireplace. It'll hold about 250 to 300 people. So a pretty large area for people to gather together. Behind Mist Mountain, we have these fishing docks and dock areas that jut out in and over Blair Pond. So there's 3 of them. There's one here, and then there's one that's off the side of this page. But these will be areas where you can go out. There'll be picnic tables and chairs out there so you can eat your ice cream or your dinner or lunch out there. But really neat area. Also, it'll be a place to do fishing clinics. Our pond, the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife, we're going to work with to help stock the pond. So a lot of opportunities, for activities, urban-type activities, teaching kids kind of some outdoor things there adjacent to the pond area. The playground area is actually turning out to be quite amazing. It's about a 5-acre playground area. It has 7 different rooms within it, and each room kind of handles and is in the programming elements. The playground program elements are geared toward different age groups, and it starts out with Cloverville, which for kids that are under the age of about 2.5. So just when they start walking, kind of that age group and lower. A lot of it'll be staffed by some early childhood play experts. So we'll have some staffing there. Again, teaching parents how to work with their kids, how to get them, if they're not rolling over, how to get them to roll over. If they're learning to toddle, some physical exercises that kids can do. So just again, trying to help parents and get parents the outdoor time to be one-on-one with their kid, because there's really not a lot of places that you can do that. If I've got kids that are 6 and 7 now, and you take them over to Zink Park at 41st Street, and when they were really small, you were always worried that the older kids would trample them, because you have a confluence of different ages. So it's kind of a neat deal to have it all broken up. So the smaller area, Cloverville, then we've got Progressive between 5 and 7. We've got 2 play areas, Fairyland Forest, and then River Giants. The River Giants section is really neat. The equipment is made by a company called Monstrum out of Copenhagen, and they were actually featured in New York Times this past weekend and mentioned our project. This will be their first installation in the United States here in Tulsa, and it will be the largest installation they have in the world. They make really bright and colorful playground equipment, but the River Giants is one of my favorite. If you remember last year, the Department of Wildlife had done those underwater cameras in the Arkansas River, and they found this prehistoric billfish. Well, we've actually copied that billfish, and it's going to be a huge 45-foot fish that the kids, and it's about 15 feet tall, the kids can climb up on and get inside. It's all wheelchair accessible. And then also, 2 birds or a bird that the blue heron. We have a ton of those in Oklahoma. We have 2 21-foot blue herons with a play structure in between. So in the River Giants area, it's kind of neat that we're kind of paying homage to some of the fish and wildlife here in our community. This is an area of the spiral towers. These are 6 very large towers. The smallest one is 42 feet. The tallest one is about 62 feet. This is the tallest one here. You'll just be able to look out over the top of the tree canopy and see downtown from the top of this tower. Inside each of the towers, there's actually floors, and within the floors, there's puzzles and games and different kinds of educational things that the kids can play and do inside each of the towers, plus great lookout spots across the top. They have swinging bridges that link each one of them together. The 2 towers in the back, that's also connected to this 2-story elephant with a little fort on the top. That's all a fixed bridge, so it's all wheelchair accessible. So 2 of the large towers and the large elephant that's in the middle, and its trunk is a giant 2-story speed slide that comes down. Lots of slides that come off the towers, and then kind of one of the capstone pieces is this 50-foot pirate ship. It's a cargo pirate ship right in the middle. The kids can actually load cargo on and load cargo off, and it has a huge steering wheel and a huge mast system, but a great place for kids to kind of play and imagine. We got several different other areas, 2 other areas that are my favorite that I don't have illustrations of. We have a ramble area where we took it's a sensory garden. We took a lot of cues from some of the children's museums across the United States, where we have actually educational interactive stations that are curated with text and things about sight and sound and feel. And so there'll also be staff people that will help on big weekends, kind of helping the kids through those different areas. Really neat parabolic sound reflectors, if you've seen those in Millennium Park in Chicago. But it's about 20, 25 different items that are kind of sensory items that are really, really neat. And then a water play area that's about an acre in size. And it's not a typical spray and play kind of splash pad like you'd see at one of the city parks, but the kids actually have to use their muscles, and they have to use their brains, and they have to use their communication skills to be able to make the water flow. So it's a pretty neat deal. But so great playground area. This is the pond, or the Blair Pond on the property. It's 4.25 acres in size. This is the bridge that moves you from the playground area over to the Great Lawn and to the Boathouse. It kind of pulls the style of the towers that Richter made in the playground area. So it's got these large timbers with these really neat stainless steel collars that kind of connect everything together, kind of give it a modern element. And then also this handrail is kind of a see-through handrail, again, a kind of a modernistic element. It links you over to the Great Lawn, which I showed you the Great Lawn earlier. It had we can put about 4,000 people on it. It goes over the North Land Bridge, and it comes over to this, what we call the Lakeview Lawn. This is another performance space that can hold about 16 to 1,700 people, maybe up to 2,000, depending on its configuration, but it'll have all the electric and power located in this area, so we can put a stage in. Here's the 21st, 23rd Street Bridge, so you'll be a great spot to watch the Boom River fireworks on July 4th. Here's the bridge that we just mentioned, and the Lakeview Lawn is kind of located back here. This is the 3-story boathouse. This has a lot of different purposes. It gets its name because it's got boat storage in the bottom area here with a floating dock, so you can port your rented canoe or paddle boat or ocean kayak off onto the pond. Then up on the second level here, we actually have our activity space, about 7,500 square feet of activity space that we can launch all of our summer programs, kid programs, all our health and wellness type programs. I'll talk some more about that at the end of the presentation. And then a really large community deck across the top that has a restaurant in it, and then also has a screened-in porch on the side. So a really big open deck with unbelievable views of downtown Tulsa and of the community, or of the park itself. So a lot of things you can see from this deck here at the top. I think we loaded my wrong presentation on here. You noticed I was a little jagged going through. So this is the park project. You can see the view of downtown here. The programming basically falls into 5 categories. Again, I apologize for sending the wrong presentation. But basically programs are cultural events. So, and one of the things that we're emphasizing in what we're trying to do for the community is not bring the existing cultural events that are in the community to the park. We're trying to create our own cultural events. So there's a lot of different things where, and I remembered kind of part of the inspiration is at Guthrie Green, we had the mariachi band last Christmas, and we had this huge, there were probably 200 kids up on the stage dancing, but we want to bring cultural events that are going to really open Tulsans' eyes and make it totally unique and new and something that's centered just for the gathering place itself and something new for Tulsans to experience. But then a lot of kids programmings. In our schools today, we're losing a lot of our arts and creativity and our music. And so what we would like to do is bring a lot of that back into the park. So there'll be a lot of kids programming. And then a lot of health and wellness education, not only for the kids, but also for adults and for for our seniors. So a lot of health and wellness programming aspects that'll be brought into the park. And then a lot of things that'll, bike servicing, where you can do it yourself bike repair. That's real popular on the coast. But and then also just trying to do things that are educational oriented, such as reading programs for kids. The oldest tree on the site, we've actually named the Reading Tree, and we're going to be unveiling the Reading Tree in social media later this fall and early spring. And the Reading Tree is going to report on the construction of the park. But when the park construction is done, the Reading Tree is actually going to turn into a mini stage. It's going to have a real small 10-foot by 8-foot stage where the kids can do puppet shows. They can do play acting with their parents there. There can be story times where we form a partnership with the library and maybe have a bookmobile that parks in the parking lot behind it, or maybe a special carts made to come out to the Reading Tree. So the programming will be enveloped within the park itself, and we're pretty excited about those programming elements. So that's a little bit about the project. You've probably seen the fences have all gone up. This past Monday, the Midland Valley Trail was closed. We're real close to getting our dirt moving permit, and we'll be taking down the large berm that runs on the east side of Riverside Drive that connects to the Midland Valley Trail, and then we'll be starting a lot of the dirt work. Also this week, you'll begin to see a lot of tree trimming and tree work. We're putting in a 12 to 18 inch bed of, it's a mushroom emulsion and bark and leaves that we're going to be caking over all of the areas of the trees that we're trying to maintain and preserve during the construction. We're also putting up fence barriers around all those tree areas, both in the playground and around the back area of where the lodge is. So trying to care and preserve and keep those trees alive during the construction. Spend a sizable amount of money. We have Pruce Landscaping, if you know Bill Pruce and his team. There's 4 arborists at his company, and they've been hired full-time to do all the tree management for us. And so a lot of effort and attention to the tree work, and there'll be a lot of trees taken down too, and that's pretty sad. But one of the things that we're going to do is we'll be planting almost 5,000, between 4,000 and 5,000 trees back in to reforest the park. So a lot of exciting things that you'll start to see kind of unfold over the coming weeks, and you'll see a lot of it in the media. We're working very closely with the Tulsa World and Channel 6 and 2 and 8 to try to get them to kind of come on site and do stories, but we want people to kind of know what's going on. Construction starts now. A lot of people are pretty surprised that it's happened so fast, and it will last about 3 years. We should be done by the middle to end of 2017. So lots of stuff going on. Project cost right now is about $350 million. That includes a $50 million endowment for the project, and we are about $16 million away from our fundraising goal through private donations. We've raised about $135 million, so we're real thankful for all the corporate support and foundation support, and we're building a park. So talked about it for long enough. Now we're ready to start building it. Are there any questions? Yes.
And I'm wondering, how do you deal with that?
So actually, the reason that it's swampy is they have a drainage problem. The city came in and put a stormwater line that ran back behind on the inside edge of the Midland Valley Trail. And just on the edge of Riverside Drive, there's a stovepipe. The stovepipe is basically, looks like a drain like you have in your shower, except that it's kind of raised. They had a lot of slough off the Midland Valley Trail when they go in and they mow it down real tight. There's a lot of erosion with heavy rainfall. So what happened is the slough off the Midland Valley Trail actually built up and filled in the drain area. So the property was never drained. And Dan Buford worked, the previous landowner, worked very closely with the city, and of course there was this back and forth, and he would go out and kind of clear it, but it never really drained effectively. And unfortunately, what's happened is most of the trees that are kind of in this area right here, the roots are all dry rotted out. And so while the trees look okay, trees fall in the heavy wind we've had the last couple of years, specifically last July, when we had that 76-mile-an-hour wind gust. We donated all 66.5 acres in phase 1 to River. We gave them a funding commitment to build it, and then at the same day that we did that as a 100-year renewable lease, we signed a 100-year operating, maintenance, programming, and security agreement with River Park to the George Kaiser Family Foundation through an entity called GKFF Parks Conservancy. That conservancy is going to be responsible for all the operating, all the maintenance, programming, and also the payment of those things. Now, the $50 million endowment that we've raised, combined with whatever, will be the responsibility of that conservancy. It's the very same model that we use, slightly different, but similar, that we use to program Guthrie Green. That's all paid for by the foundation to the tune of almost $1 million per year.
I have a question. Jeff, you're familiar with the bus rapid transit system that's going to be on Peoria. Talk to us a little bit about how people that use the BRT, what kind of access they'll have into the park.
I would like to see a bus rapid transit bus stop corner of 31st and Peoria in the Mestre Park. That's a park that's owned by the Tulsa Community Foundation. We think that you could remodel that and put in a really cool kind of stylistic bus stop. We've worked with Public Works very closely to provide for a pedestrian and bike corridor on 31st Street. That road is 4 lanes wide. It really only has enough traffic, honestly, for 2 lanes. It's not really got so many nice, beautiful trees down 31st Street. It's kind of hard to decide which side you would take out to put sidewalks in. We don't really like to take trees out, but what we work with Public Works is to come up with a way to put in a bike lane, the traffic way down to either 2 or 3 lanes with a center, either 2 traffic ways at a center turn or 2 traffic way lanes, and then bike and pedestrian. So we would actually make that. We'd like it to go all the way up to the park past Peoria, but you know, I don't know if you know where 31st and Peoria is huge on the northeast corner. There's a big giant wall. It's hard to see around it, and then you kind of have the same thing, only it's a green wall on the southeast side. It's just a hard intersection, and this is real at the confluence of pedestrian cars at that intersection. So, but our dream would be that we link up the next 2 square miles, which basically with the bike paths that we have really links about a 6 additional square miles because people can get through the neighborhoods. But really all up and down, one of the things that I've noticed, we don't have enough parking in river parks. The park here is going to have 650 net new parking spaces in phase 1 and an additional 2 parking places in phase 2, and then probably 300 or 400 parking places in phase 3. But in my opinion, I don't think you'll ever have enough parking places, and we're looking at doing a shuttle system to bring people from over here to have overflow parking, ride a shuttle to get here during peak season. But I think the more we can incentivize people to get to the river's edge on bikes and walking or running, I think the better. Cars as we possibly can. So that's something we're trying to work towards. But that kind of maybe answers your question.
Other questions? Let me bring you a microphone.
You mentioned a 13-foot lane width for going under the land bridge, which is really wide. That's highway wide. Is there going south of that? Turned off. To Highway 44 is still pretty narrow. Is that supposed to be widened at this point too, or?
Public Works. So they all of our land bridges have to be ODOT compliant, US DOT compliant, Federal Highway Administrative compliant. A lot of that has to do with the Tiger grant that we received. But a lot of those requirements are I say, forced upon are mandated from the federal level.
Others?
Jeff, did you talk about some of the I know you mentioned some of the wildlife, but there's a lot of storm sewer that goes through the property, correct?
Yeah. So Public Works has quite a few projects. They looked at the cost of the park as being $300 million and said, we better get every bit of underground utility work done before if we change anything, it's going to be almost cost prohibitive. So if you look at this drawing, Travis, this is 31st Street right here. This is the Travis Heights neighborhood, right, kind of goes right in this area. It kind of actually comes up in this area. I think they're part of Maple Ridge, but Travis Heights kind of comes in this area here. And then this is the Maple Ridge neighborhood right here. So if you remember in 1983, we actually had a lot of flooding in this area right here. Conversely, over here on the north side of the property in Sunset Terrace, or what they call West or Maple Ridge North, I'm not really sure which. In this area here, they have a lot of flooding as well. It's going to empty into the Arkansas River about right here, and it's going to come underground across Riverside Drive, and it's going to run underneath the Four Seasons Garden, under our 40,000 square foot underground bunker building right here, all the way back and across under, next to the Midland Valley Trail, all the way back to, oh, my light went out, right about here. And then Public Works is in the process of purchasing this house right here. And then they'll run it underneath. They'll actually have to take out the Midland Valley Trail, run it through this neighborhood, and it will here. Stormwater that they were going to location here, and then it's going to come across. That project is about an $8 million stormwater project, but here, may not know. They took it and they put it in a big concrete culvert, and it runs, the creek runs out of Swan. Emptying the second house over from our property. So Bucky Valley Days owns the house right on Riverside Drive, and the next one is the Barnes. Between their garage, way up this north property line, up to Boston Place up here. So we're going to put in another. It'll have two barrels to shoot the water out into the Arkansas River. So it should solve all of the flooding issues on this side of the neighborhood. Also, we're putting inlets in about every 45 or 50 feet all around this edge here. Help the drainage on just immediately to the north. So those are the two really large. At the end of the line. One of the things we're going to do is put the around the outer edge of these neighborhoods. And this part of the all the will ultimately be circular and connected. So that's going to ultimately improve service after the park project. Work in this area, it's a water line rework. You know, PSO is in the process. All the electric lines off the Leaf Bridge. They have an underground route all the way over to the west plant over here, and then they have another one from 21st Street. They went under the river and they're taking in those two underground areas. And then gas lines will all going to be raised because this area over here. Then the present. The utility. Everybody, one of my foundation's pet peeves are the overhead. So if I see any overhead lines, all the overhead lines here, all the overhead lines here, all the overhead lines on this border, and then all the ones down in this area. Overhead, so long, Cox. to their, the pedestrians to pedestrians is setting that. We'd probably be able to do that. Interconnectivity with the neighborhood is connection from the north side. We have one here at 30th, next people park, and then in this whole area here we had a neighborhood meetings. You know, it's kind of the don't want it to. In there don't want it, and petition the city government. This entrance stayed open primarily because a lot of these neighbors didn't have a problem with it. And then we're down to 2 connections here, of which are the road. So, you know, I think it's great to have sidewalks. I think sidewalks should be everywhere. My neighborhood has sidewalks. I live in a newly developed neighborhood. But the problem is when you're doing infill, the neighborhoods pretty much drive your process for your planning and so they, as much as these people all talk about wanting them, they don't want them in their front yard and they don't want them next to their house, and there's crime associated with them. It was quite a battle, to put it lightly.
This is obviously a transformational project, and I can understand a lot of people when coming to downtown, visiting down, they're going to want to connect, not just possibly via transit, but also perhaps by linkage to the downtown, which brings me to the connectivity thing. Did I understand you said the sidewalks on the east side of Riverside may not be provided?
They're not. They were taken out. No, there will be no sidewalks on the east side because the neighborhood over in this side didn't want people to park and walk, and they didn't want people coming from downtown to the park.
Yeah, okay, so. Therefore, connectivity between the downtown across Riverside, in some ways the key is you may get Denver.
Yeah, so, yeah, my recommendation to the city was if the sidewalk doesn't go in and you can't get there from downtown, then they should put a stoplight in at Boulder and put a crossing in to get people to the trail and then over. And that's kind of the way it kind of was left. So it costs more money to put in a street signal. It costs about $600,000 for a 4-lane controlled traffic signal, and the sidewalk was, well, with the retaining walls was like, I don't know, less than $1 million. So these are the fights you fight when you're in the development business. We're building a park, yet still there's a lot of resistance to these types of things. Any other questions? Thank you.